Hi, I'm Janice Switlo, and I actually started out my YouTube channel here dealing with the framework process, the federal government's framework process. And I just wanted to add a few comments to that because I've been disturbed. You know, this is a very secretive process. There's no, dissemination of documents. People get dribs and drabs of documents, send them to me, which I'm appreciative to receive. But it really was disturbing, a set of documents that I recently had received and reviewed. And I want to share with you what's going on. These framework processes are being used to wrap everything up completely. What they're doing in this particular example that was brought to my attention, they are wrapping up the settlement of specific claims and all of that, and in bringing it together with quote-unquote self-government. Essentially, these are, the new form of, BC treaty process, or the special made in whatever province process, okay? What they're doing is saying, after you sign this, that's it, no more. Everything's done, completely done. There's no more going back to the table to say, you took these reserve lands unlawfully, there was no legal foundation, that surrender was void from the beginning, and therefore you owe us all this money. There's no more going back to say taking up of land was not possible by companies. It could only be done by the Crown Corporation, Canadian governments, and only for certain purposes. Therefore, mining companies, for instance, who not only took up but took away land, right? It goes even further, in railroads and things of that nature. There's no more pursuing any of that. Appreciate the size of the magnitude of those claims. They're huge, okay? We're talking, everything that's been earned, not net, gross, every penny. The whole idea in equitable law being that no one should benefit. It shouldn't be a cost of business to rip somebody off and do something wrong so that you can profit, because there's no discouraging of that. To be the deterrent, you have to give up everything that you actually gained by doing that unlawful act, or that wrongful act. So everything's forgiven. Now, in one particular example, and keep in mind, when they do final land claims settlements, there's a per capita amount. There's a certain price per head that's given. The kinds of monies that are coming forward in these framework processes, where they're breaking it down into individual communities, for instance, in this particular case, are far less than the per capita head price that usually comes through the land claims policy, of negotiation policy. So I want to be really clear, if I'm not already, that and here's the big problem. It's almost impossible to get fully informed and freely provided consent in these situations. The agreements are not being provided. There'll probably be some summary marketing propaganda tool, like we found in the situation of the Anishinaabe Nation Governance Agreement. Here we have something that's been negotiated for a while, and the people, are stumbling across, or someone's slipping something out of the office, something that's not supposed to be shared but gets shared, but only partial, not even the whole thing. So to get, a couple cents on the dollar, not even, 0.005 cents on the dollar, it might be more like it, to give up all those wrongdoings and all the reparations, all of the land ownings that are still in force, because if something's null and void, because it did not follow the requirements of the law at the time, if there was no actual surrender, the magnitude of that, as I said, is huge. So to be getting all of that, to be getting your nationhood, to be pulling you out of your nation, because if this is a one community deal, for instance, pulling you out of the nation, abandoning and giving up your original nationality, wrapping this all in for what? The promise of you know, really small settlement amounts. But, you know, I know, for instance, you know, that a few $1 million, you know, sounds like a lot. But if you look back at, you know, there's also Washington Treaty I was looking at, 1836, I think it was. And the monies, and this is a different scenario, this is south of the Medicine Line, and with the US. And, you know, the kind of, the amounts there for actual sale, and I'm taking the documents at face value, would have been huge at the time. But there's nothing left. You know, that money didn't last. And even though the kinds of amounts that desperate people are seeing tabled, and knowing they're going to, here's the other thing, right? When Canada used to settle these claims, Canada would insist upon that money being put into a protective environment. So in a trust that's properly structured so no one could just help themselves to it. No, in this case, in this agreement that I reviewed, this offer from Canada, Canada says it offers no advice on how to deal with the monies, and we'll do one of two things. We'll either deposit it into the bank account of the chief and council at the bank, and so what, you need 1 or 2 signatures to move that money, or we'll put it into the trust account that the feds hold for the band. Now, what's been happening with that is that Canada is supposed to be exercising a fiduciary duty to ensure that the request for money coming out, remember this is a collective asset, that the request for money coming out has a foundation. It's actually going to be used for the purpose it's said. Not go into a chief's pocket, for instance, or not go into a personal corporation controlled by the chief that may be offshore, or into a personal account of the chief that may be offshore. But what Canada's doing now is just appears to, and I've seen this in a number of cases, accepting a simple Bank Council resolution saying, give us this money. And Canada saying, oh, okay, well, under self-government, we don't want to be paternalistic. We're not going to, you know, question it. Here you go. And as I said, you know, in the example of Frog Lake, there's, you know, what, 162 million or 62 million, I forget the figure right now, but a lot of money, right? More than this particular proposal for settlement of the claims and capitulating and coming under and being incorporated under Canada. More than that, and that's gone. And you know, I can't emphasize enough. Once the money's gone, it's pretty much gone. And you're trying to, in a poor community, then trying to raise money or find a pro bono lawyer who's not going to do it. Lawyers are not the professions they used to be. They're there to make money. And even know what to do, how properly to structure it is another aspect of it. So, you know, the people need to be guaranteed and have full information that if they decide to take money and give up their land, then that money is going to be protected and to be used for collective purposes. It's pretty hard to do, and I think that's why, you know, elders and Indigenous nationals of long ago have always said, you know, it's about the land. We got to maintain the land. We need a place for our people, for next generations. We need access to resources. We need food. We need water. We need clean air. And that's all I have to say.